So Rick, just a reminder, everything's a roll call vote. I think you do that anyway, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just go through, I gotta admit a few more people here. And then we'll let everybody know that
My meeting.
once we get them on here.
All right. Okay. Let me know if I can do anything.
Okay, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Winstreet, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're not going to have public comment. We'll allow people who have a comment to take the opportunity to chime in. Prior to that, it's just going to be board discussion only. So if you're not involved in the board discussion, then you should mute your audio so that you're not speaking. So Leo and Nancy and I'm brain dead here. If I can remember a name, say it again. Teresa. Okay. So you just mute yours and then listen along, and we'll get to the public comment part here fairly soon. So
Okay, so then just to clarify, if I may, you plan to discuss, you're going to do the hearing on Levy tonight on this format?
we're not going to do a hearing tonight on Levy.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, what we're going to do tonight is we have to set it up so that we can move it further out into the future so that we can have a public comment, a public meeting on that.
I see. Okay.
I think you probably would agree it's pretty difficult to, I think, to do a public meeting in this format.
Sure.
Especially when none of us are real.
Yeah, I was impressed you were even doing this.
Well, thank you, but we got to do it. We avoided it in April, and so now we have to do this. So, all right, I think we have everybody here. So let's get started. I think the first thing we'll do is, if anybody has questions, go ahead and.
I have a question, Rick.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we know, how do you acknowledge us to let us speak? I'm not sure how we're going to pull that off.
Well, I think there was somewhere you could raise your hand, but I don't see that here, so I don't know how.
Oh, okay.
I would say
alphabetically. Just ask who wants to speak alphabetically.
Okay.
I'm looking at you too, so you can raise your hand. Can you see mine?
Okay. All right. Raise your hand. I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Right. And so the first thing we'll do is we'll call the meeting to order. And then if everybody stands up, it'll disappear, but we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's do that first. So I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation.
Which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was different.
That was
Thank you, Tammy, for the flag.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So
How many visitors do we have?
it looks like we've got Amy, Lisa, Teresa. Did I get that right? Leo, Nancy, and Joe.
And Jennifer.
And Lisa Burke, yeah, you got
And
Lisa.
Jennifer, right, okay. All right, so I got a lot of faces here. All right, so take a roll call, Tammy.
Yeah, it looks like we have all board members present.
All right. I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
motion to approve. Salvia,
Okay.
Support Cooper.
Support by who?
Cooper.
Okay. All right, we'll have a vote on that.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
yes.
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 Oh, boy, that was really rough.
Yes.
Do
So you-
not go in order at all.
Yeah. Okay, we should call it by name though, so that anybody on board can know who's who, so.
All right, I guess I'll have to call each one,
Yeah.
and,
Wait
for
for
every vote.
it to be called. Okay, the next item is consent agenda approval. Somebody want to make a motion to approve that?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Mrs.
No.
McDonald? Okay,
No.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear Mrs. McDonald's vote.
She
I
said-
voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hold on just a second here. Anybody who's just come on board, please mute your audio.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Hamel, I believe you can mute, as a host, you can mute people.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out who's probably the chief out there. He's always busy.
Question.
Okay, question, Mary Pat.
So the list of bills, that
Me, my headphone.
consent agenda,
Wait.
Uh-huh.
I didn't see it, but we don't have a separate agenda, a separate item for list of bills.
That probably
so
should-
Mary Pat, do you have that door closed?
Just a minute, I'll close it.
Yeah, I think that'll help our sound issues.
There's definitely an echo.
Right.
Okay, my question is the list of bills, I didn't see it separate, so that was on this consent agenda, wasn't it? But I guess it's under financial report. I just wanted to note on there that when I was looking it over, that several times we've had expenditures already for the coronavirus. Like, did we give people hazardous pay? Is that what it was? Like for people that came in the accounting department, and there was it says stipend in office COVID. And there was a couple of times in the accounting department for $60, and then also in the a couple of times it was $40, and there was once in the treasury department for $40. So
That's
I just wanted to clarify that.
all right. So Judy, you want to clarify that, or Tammy?
Do you know what I'm talking about on here?
Mhm.
Yep, Tammy can.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
do.
so,
I saw that too, Mary, and I had a question about that too.
so the three in-house officials were discussing options for paying the staff that have to come in as opposed to the staff that don't have to come in. So what we decided was there's going to be a $20 per day stipend for coming in to the office on the days that they have to come in.
Okay. And I totally agree with that. I just
Mhm.
wanted us to note that and kind of keep it in mind that how careful we need to be with the budget now because of all these extra expenses that are coming up now with the COVID. And, but I totally agree with this. They should get that, but we
Mhm.
just need to be aware of the added expenses that this is putting on us.
Right.
That's a good point.
And I would add to that, when the three in-house make decisions like that, it would be really helpful if you let the trustees know, the rest of the trustees. Just keep us up to date.
Noted.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to the next item, announcements and information inquiry. Founder's Day celebration has been canceled, so that's off for the 16th of May. We are going to go ahead with a hazardous waste day, Saturday, June 6th, from 9 to 2 at Highland Elementary School parking lot. And the company that's doing it will handle everything in terms of, they're all wearing gear anyways, and the windows will be rolled up on the cars, and they just have to show their ID through the windows. So there'll be no interaction from any employees with the people bringing it. So that is that.
Yes.
We're still not, we haven't called off the fireworks at this point, or postponed them, I should say, if we're going to do it. that's still set for the 26th or 7th of June, the last Saturday. And depending on what our governors and federal government says we should do. I will tell you, yesterday I thought I'd get some air, so I hopped on my motorcycle and I drove down to Hines Drive. And I've been down Hines Drive a lot of times, and I've never seen it where every single parking spot was filled. And there were people everywhere, walking, playing. I mean, it was like, I don't know what to think. When they said that the landscapers could go back to work, it cut everybody loose. They all went out. So a lot of people wearing masks, a lot of them weren't. So, but they were outdoors. They were, trying to, it looked like most of them were trying to stay 6 feet or more apart, but it was a lot of people. So we got to cross our fingers. I'm not going to take that kind of a trip again where I thought maybe I'd be, a little bit less people, but I never got off the bike, so I wasn't worried about it. Go, Tammy?
Before we get off announcements, we should mention that the Memorial Day Parade is not happening this year.
Okay.
But Joe's told me he's working on some things for virtual be able to celebrate the day in a virtual way. And then we still are going to have the ceremonies at the cemeteries. And I'm going to try to set up a situation where we can have those available to watch online through live streaming. And so everybody doesn't have to come to the cemetery if they want to observe the holiday. So we're working on that.
Great.
Tom Oltisvig is in charge this year of the Highland activities. We'll be supporting him.
I've been in touch with them.
Okay.
Nice. Can I make an announcement too?
Sure.
The prayer breakfast is going on. We've created a YouTube video and we will have a link to that shortly. It's Thursday morning at 8 o'clock and you'll be able to share that out. So I hope you come and watch it.
All right. So additional information, we're still going to be out of the office until after the 15th. We will bring people back in after that point on a limited basis until we can get everything worked out to make sure that we're all adequately protected. Jenny and I kind of went through the building today, and just in sitting in your normal seats, you are more than 6 feet apart on a regular basis. Amy, you and Renee are going to have to move your computers farther down the desk. That'll be the difference there. So, but it can be done, and we may have to put a screen up between you or something if you feel that's more comfortable. So we have put up, for lack of a better term, I call them a COVID screen. We've put those up at all the counters. So that's already been done and installed. We have masks for everybody in the building. What will happen is there's a box per employee of 50 masks. And so that should be enough to get everybody through a fairly long period of time. And other than that, there'll be some more information that I guess a committee, Jenny and a few others, Tammy, and I don't know who else is on it, will put together some documentation before everybody gets back together. So we're doing everything we can to protect everybody, and hopefully everybody else that has been out on their own is doing the same. So I think Highland has been doing a good job overall until she let the landscapers go, the governor, and then it's been a roadblock ever since. So, all right, any other information anybody wants to impart?
Have we had any problems with the COVID virus in Highland Township that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Chief, do you know of any?
Yeah, we've had, I'd have to look back on records, but I'd have to look at, I'd have to say probably about 25 to 30 COVID responses this last month.
They were positive or just responses?
Positive or symptomatic.
Okay.
So there's a chart on the county website that shows by zip code how many cases there are. And I think Highland's 2 zip codes together maybe has 25 or 30 cases and only 1 death that's been, according to what's been reported and, tested and reported. So.
All right. Okay, so let's, we'll move on. Okay, now we've got public comment. I'm gonna, why don't everybody that's muted themselves at public, you can unmute if you'd like. If you've got a public comment, unmute yourself and identify yourself. So any public comment?
Hi, yes, this is Beth Great.
Okay.
I was wondering where we access the link for the prayer breakfast.
We'll have it out there probably tomorrow. We're just
On
finishing
the
up the
Highland-
video tonight.
On the
It'll be
Highland
on-
website?
On the Highland website and on the Highland White Lake Business Association website.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Beth. And then remute yourself, please. And Teresa?
Back in February, we are working with Matt Whalen on a project for our home, and we need a variance. And so we submitted, or Matt submitted a variance form. We didn't make it onto the March meeting, but we were placed on the April meeting. Obviously, the meeting was canceled. And so now the construction workers can go back to work, but unfortunately, it looks like the variance meetings are indefinitely postponed, and I'm wondering if there's any possibility of us having this type of a meeting so that our variance could be addressed.
Yes, in fact, Lisa Burkhart and I had a short conversation about this, and so the thought process is we'll have to set it up for a Zoom meeting, and I think that's the only way we're going to be able to carry it forward, because it's pretty hard at this time to say we don't want to put it any longer. We really apologize on that, but I think you are very aware that
Right.
it's something we could control that much. So what we'll do is we're going to keep you posted, because you were actually specifically, am I correct, Lisa, on that? That this was the individual that Matt Whalen had to do a variance?
Yes.
Yep. So this is in the works, and we'll be contacting you and make you aware of the date.
Okay.
And it'll be published, publicly like it's supposed to be, and then we'll set it up from there.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Oh, there we go. Lower hand, raise hand. Beth, did you have something else that you want to say?
No, was I supposed to unraise my hand?
I guess I can lower your hand.
Oh,
you go.
there we go.
This is different, I'll tell you. All right, so on that note, then we're going to move on. So if anybody that is not interested in sitting through any more of this, you can, except those required to, you can depart at any time, and we appreciate your coming to this annual meeting here. So we're going to move on to item number 8, pending business. And we've got resolution number 20-15 regarding the coronavirus local state of emergency. Gary, I think you, 2015. This was, you want to pipe in on this, Gary?
Yeah, I can outline it real briefly. Back on March 17th, we did a series of motions just at the meeting. One of them declared a state of emergency. Several others basically gave it the authority to Rick, Tammy, and Judy to make the calls as necessary until you met again. Well, we're now a month and a half out from that. This resolution, and we're still under a state of emergency, at least if you think the governor is correct. This basically continues that same declaration of a local emergency, continues it. It leaves it for the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer to make any calls to implement decisions until your next meeting. And to the extent necessary, for any type of federal funding assistance, it authorizes your emergency management liaison. Like last April, you adopted a support plan as part of the participating with the county. And the third resolve paragraph basically says that to the extent it's needed for funding or the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer to do something, the township's support plan will be activated by its fire marshal to do that, Sean Bell. And then the final paragraph would have basically Ken and Sean responsible for submitting any funding requests for state or federal assistance. There's a FEMA public assistance grant that's apparently available, and that's already been applied for by the fire department already. So just to continue, the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer having authority to make snap decisions as needed to respond to the whatever's coming out of the state. It seems to have slowed down a bit. The new orders now are simply continuations of old ones. I could talk longer. There's been a lot of activity on it on the legal and the political front, but we're still under states of emergency. Opinion of my office is that the governor's orders still have the force of law. They should be followed. They should not be ignored. And that's notwithstanding that the legislature did not extend their blessing of the state of emergency beyond April 30th. Can go into way more detail if you like, but I'm hoping you don't.
Well, I don't know how everybody else's email's been, but I think I've seen enough detail to choke an elephant for a year on this thing. And every time the governor speaks, we get hit with interpretations that turn it from a 5-page document into a 50-page document. So I think that I don't need any more, Gary. I understand where we're at, so I appreciate that.
You know, I mean, and you're going to meet on June 1st. I mean, one way or the other, you'll either meet live or you'll meet like this again. So this just in case something comes up that needs attention, and you don't want to call a special board meeting, that allows the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer to make a call. I don't know what that may be. And as related to the funding, I did a little background checking on the FEMA public assistance grants. I think Sean Bell knows a lot more about that than me, but I did not see where there had to be a township board declaration authorizing the money, but in case it's needed, this resolution would provide it. So there's some documentation that you folks are on board with it and have authorized fire department to pursue the applications.
All right, so I guess what we could do is somebody want to make a motion to approve this?
Yeah, just adopt the resolution regarding coronavirus local state of emergency as presented by the township attorney.
Support. Oh,
Wait, who moved?
I did.
Mary Pat.
Mary Pat, and then who seconded?
Brian.
Me.
Brian,
Yeah,
okay. All right. Ready to vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Gary, for that work on that. The next item, pending business, is reschedule consideration of levy Highland consent judgment amendment and public hearing on proposed mining area expansion. So, Gary, I'm going to let you go into a little description on that one too.
Okay. So at the, might have been the March 2nd meeting, we had a closed session. We talked about a memorandum of understanding. The board adopted a motion for us to work with Levy's attorneys on a consent judgment amendment. In this case, it would be the third one that would be consistent with that memorandum of understanding. That step has been accomplished. And Carol and I are comfortable that there's a consent judgment that would, if approved by the board, would implement what was in that memorandum of understanding. The second thing we did at that March meeting in open session was to schedule a public hearing for your April meeting. That was a hearing that would be strictly limited to the subject of adding approximately 80 acres to the mining permit. Well, the April 6th meeting was canceled. Had discussions with Rick, Tammy, and Judy that although the governor's orders allow for public hearings to be done remotely like we're doing right now, it didn't seem like adding the acreage to the mining permit would be something that should be done by a remote public hearing. Can be, but that's something to talk about tonight is, you know, how to move this towards conclusion. We do know that we want to have that public hearing before you vote on the consent judgment amendment. So that's what's before you tonight. It's just how you'd like to proceed. No decision on the substance of it, just procedurally how we're going to get it to the point where you can make a decision. So I could talk longer, but that's really why I thought we'd go put it back on here. Now, May 15th is the current expiration date of the governor's stay-home order. However, she entered 4 orders last Friday that extended the state of emergency and the state of disaster for 28 days, basically through May 28th. And in those orders said that every one of her other orders, such as the one that allows for remote meetings, we're going to now rely on her new orders from last Friday. So even if the stay-home order goes by the boards and is not extended any further, we still have the other orders that allow remote meetings. I don't know what she's going to do by way of public gatherings. The prohibition on public gatherings of any size is in the stay-home order. So I don't have a crystal ball. It's a couple weeks out. So we could try to cobble together a contingency type of a motion if you want. Maybe hear what the board's thinking on it is, and I can try to provide some language once I have an idea what your thinking is.
I think we should definitely not, if we can do it in a live setting, I would prefer it. I think Mr. Wayne Street probably would agree with that, and anybody else that might want to show up publicly. It's a lot easier to do it that way than it is through this medium right here. So I don't know that how comfortable people are going to feel June 1st or the 1st of June, whatever that date is for our meeting. Okay, somebody's got their talking in the background there, so. What's that? Okay, I thought everybody was muted, but I guess. So anyways, I think that we should find some way to push it down the road a little bit here. Yes, Gary.
So the June 1st, you could schedule it for a public hearing on June 1st, but the problem becomes the public notices. I mean, if we're trying to follow the traditional public notice process, you want to get the notices out 15 days ahead of the meeting. Well, that's going to be on us before even the governor's stay-home order expires if it's not extended. So I've never understood if there's any urgency on this from Levy's point of view. I don't think there is any urgency from the township's point of view. A safer way to do it might be, if you didn't want to do any special meeting, is schedule it for July. You got plenty of time, wait and see what happens after May 28th when the current orders are run through. Strange times we're in.
Yeah. Well, I think it's truly, Levy has got to understand, the impact of it. And I think that I don't think they'd have this problem with moving it forward, but it is our decision. So I'll let anybody else speak at this point.
I agree with Gary. I think that we should wait till July so we can give people enough notice.
That certainly
I
is
would
simple.
agree to that too.
That's simplest.
Anybody else?
I agree too.
Okay, so I guess probably I go along with that. We could put forth a motion. Gary, you want to craft a motion for that for us?
Yeah, the motion, I'm looking for your July meeting date. July 6th? Does that sound right, Tammy?
July, where is it? Hold on.
Yeah, that's right.
July 6th.
Yep.
So I guess the motion would be to schedule consideration of the third consent judgment amendment in the Levy v. Highland case for the board's Monday, July 6, 2020, 6:30 p.m. meeting, with a public hearing on the additional land to be placed on the agenda in advance of considering the consent judgment amendment.
That's my motion.
Support, Salvia.
All right, vote please.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
Yes,
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Leo, if you want to leave, you can leave at any time. I hope we answered your question. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks for coming on. All right, new business. We got two pyrotechnics things going on here. So this is to approve the application and issue the permit for Gen X Pyrotechnics fireworks. They're the one that they do White Lake. And I guess the reason we need to authorize it or give them the permit is because the barge departs from Highland and generally floats over Highland's side of the line going down the center of the lake. So even though it's a White Lake, it's not sanctioned by the township. It is the White Lake homeowners group there that does it. So I'd like to recommend a motion to authorize the issuance of the permit to Gen X Pyrotechnics for fireworks display on July 4th, 2020, or a date set later as may be required by order of the Governor of Michigan to maintain proper social distancing or to hold a large group gathering.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
yes,
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll move into the next one. I'll go ahead and read this motion. This is for Highlands Fireworks, Ace Pyro. I move to authorize the issuance of the permit to Ace Pyro LLC for fireworks display on June 27th, 2020, or a date set later as may be required by order of the Governor of Michigan to maintain proper social distancing or hold a large group gathering.
support,
Okay, a vote please.
Mrs. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
yes,
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item C, resolution 20-14 to authorize West Nile virus fund expense reimbursement request. We do this every year. The county requires us to go through this resolution in order for us to participate in their program. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve resolution number 20-14 to authorize West Nile virus fund expense reimbursement.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next item, Chief, you're on the hot seat.
Yes. Tell me what it is. I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Okay, this is for, I'll read your letter off. It says, at the January 6, 2020 Charter Township of Highland Board meeting, the board approved our plan to improve EMS coverage for the community. This equipment is required for the purpose of ALS treatment for patients as we upgrade our LSA, Life Support Agency agreement with the state of Michigan. Since February 2020, our staff has evaluated 2 monitors on the market for EMS, LifePak and Zoll. The monitors were used on medical responses and evaluated by EMTP and EMTB staff. On April 23rd, our ALS committee met. The recommendation committee was to purchase the Stryker LifePak 15. Staff stated familiarity, ease of use, and functionality of support devices were the key factors. Stryker is the sole source for the Stryker LifePak 15 device in Michigan. We request to purchase 2 Stryker LifePak 15 cardiac monitors equipped as stated in the quote. Total price will be, I'm assuming that this 80,000 is not to exceed. Is that the
Yes.
for that? Okay. And will be paid out of 402-290-000-942-000 account.
Yes. And we're at that point now. We've made our presentation to Oakland County's committees. There were 3 total committees we had to go through to get approval from the county to upgrade our system. And now we're in line to meet the state of Michigan's Department of EMS, the conditional ALS licensing upgrade.
Mary Pat, did you want to ask some questions on this one?
Yeah, I had talked to Rick earlier, and I have some concerns, and it wasn't just with the fire department, with all of our spending, with everything that's going on now. I think that we need to be really conservative, and we've been spending so much money. I know that you needed a lot of these upgrades. It's been a long time, but that's a lot of money going out at one time, and I question maybe whether we could just get by with 1 rather than 2 to try to just be a little cautious at this time.
Unfortunately, we can't buy just 1 monitor. You have to have a backup unit in order to run advanced life support. We are being fiscally conservative on any of our expenses above and beyond what we actually have to do for operations. This is an impressive way else we need the monitors.
So I have a comment on that. It looks like this is within the budget that we established in the fire capital fund. And so this is going to be paid out of the bond money, correct?
No, out of the capital money.
Right.
This is out of our capital fund.
Right. Capital fund. So
So is
that
that-
fund has currently 1.7 million sitting in it. And we did sell the bonds for only, the interest rate on the bonds is only 2.2%. So I feel like that fund is going to be very healthy and can afford this.
Is that the same fund that the new fire stations, the building of the new fire stations is coming out of also?
Yes, ma'am.
Randy?
We made the presentation for the capital millage. The capital millage was to construct 2 new fire stations, as well as replace apparatus and buy big ticket capital purchases. $80,000 is a pretty big ticket. I understand that, which is why we're taking it out of our capital fund, and we did budget for it last year.
Mm-hmm. I'm just concerned that we have all these other, and we haven't even started the fire stations yet. You know, we've been spending a lot.
Well, all this gray hair isn't just because of the last few months. Ever since we decided we were going to build fire stations, it's been getting more and more gray. So,
But and you've always, that was part of the plan too, to establish our own EMS coverage.
I'm sorry.
That was part of the plan too, besides building the fire stations, that we would start providing our own, you know, the EMS coverage for the ALS treatment. That was always part of this.
Well, 2 years ago, we
that came after.
a little over a year ago, we made a presentation, Lieutenant Bonham and I,
Right.
actually now Captain.
Right, I agree. I remember.
We talked about the impending probabilities of having to take over EMS for our community. This, unfortunately, it's happening quicker than what we were anticipating, but we are expecting that to be left up to us in the very near future.
The other side of that is the recovery, though. You have the, you'll be able to recover those, some of that cost by being an ALS certified, correct?
Correct. Your ALS transport fees are much higher than BLS transport fees because you're able to do a lot more for the patient.
Thank you.
All right, so we got a description of what's going on here. Anybody want to make a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Judy supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth,
No.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia,
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald,
No.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Next item, in the packets, I know everybody was working from separate offices and, you know, from separate homes. And it's hard sometimes, I'm sure, for Dawn to get all the pieces together to put these together. So in my memorandum on the surplus land, parcel number 1, the description of it comes second in the batch of paper. But what we're discussing here is we have 2 parcels that have had people ask us about the possibility of purchasing them. Number 1 on the memorandum is the 15 acres that abuts the Levy property and the Calasani property on Clyde Road. It's the location is next to where the sewage treatment facility was proposed in the mid-2000s. It was supposed to be located. So that land is sitting there. I don't know that we have any specific use for it. To be honest with you, it's a lumpy, unlevel, expensive piece of land to try and modify or develop. Whoever would use it, if they were just going to leave it open, that'd be the best use for it right now. But if you wanted to build on it or something like that, there'd be some issues because it was land balanced. And once you land balance, building a house, you're going to have core samples done. And it could be that there's 30 feet of fill dirt in there. And that could raise some hassles with some residential or building projects. But in any event, Mr. Calasani expressed an interest in that parcel, and I said I would bring it in front of the board to see what we might want to do with it. And then parcel number 2 is the parcel that's at the southeast corner of Wardlow Road and Hickory Ridge Road. And both the individual that owns the major acreage to the east, he would like to buy it to combine with the rest of it. He's the fellow that bought the land off the school that was 30 acres there or something. I think that was what it was, wasn't it, Lisa? Somewhere in there. So anyways, then the people who purchased the property to the south, they bought the house that was in the process of being rebuilt, and they're rebuilding it now, trying to finish it up and want to move out here, and they expressed an interest in it. Judy, did you know their name?
I can't remember their name offhand.
So in any event, what happens is we have to talk about, do we want to let them go? If you put them back on the market, you get property tax off them, and if you don't, it just sits there. So if you can think of a future use, I think the fire chief pretty much precluded that when we went through looking at locations for a fire hall, that was not a prime location. So that's why we didn't use it. One of the reasons. No water to it, another reason. But and then, like I said, the 15 acres, most people don't even know we own it. So that 15 acres, if you go back a few years, was where we had the barn that I did the video on, to try and save the barn. Well, the neighbors, the Bugeses used to live on that property and rented the home. Well, when Levy took over the land there, they moved the house.
Rick, Mary McDonald has cut out of the meeting somehow. Can you get her back in?
I can't bring her back in. Are you in the same building with her?
Yes, different room, same building.
So she should be able to rejoin the meeting, and then Rick, see if she needs to be accepted.
Rejoin, Mary. Oh, okay.
So anyways, or the two of you, if you don't mind, can sit next to each other.
They have to sit 6 feet apart.
No, they don't have to. That's the recommendation.
No, they have to.
What about their guns, though? I mean, isn't 2 rifles equal to 6 feet, or?
You gotta love right to carry, don't you?
Yeah. Did she's trying again, or?
Nope, she's moving in. We're 6 feet apart.
Okay, well, at least you can hear. Just bop your head back and forth there. So, all right, well, that's different. That's an interesting way to approach it. Can you turn you have the iPad on? Turn your iPad sideways.
They're running on, it's through Mary Pat's phone.
Oh.
Person stands up and the other one sitting down.
Okay, so that's what we have up with the discussion on the sale of surplus land. Yes, Gary?
I missed the part, Judy was just about to speak on something on the parcel on Wardlow. You asked her somebody's name, and that's the last I heard. It cut off.
Yeah, she didn't remember the name.
Okay.
So, but anyways, if we're going to do it, we'd have to contact the parties. But it puts it in that position where, and Mary, you've mentioned this a number of times on different parcels, they should put them up for sale. And if we're going to sell them.
On the parcel on Clyde Road was actually designated for a cemetery. When we got that property from Levy, that was what we had in mind for that, and we kind of set it aside. And we had a couple $100,000 in capital improvement for developing the parcel into a cemetery. So that was designated for something specific. And, you know, that's for a future board to decide if we're ever going to do that. You know, we are limited in space in the 2 cemeteries we have, and that was the idea, is if we wanted to expand, that's one of the reasons we took that property.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's an answer. That's better than trying to figure out what to do with it. You know, I mean, it's I really don't like just sitting on land if you haven't got a use for it. You know,
What is the value at this time?
I don't know what we've got for value. Well, we don't have a value on it because it's off the books. You know,
What?
They still put a value on it. We could find out what it is from any angle.
so you'd have to go into it doesn't show up on the documentation that I have though.
No, it doesn't. So Mary, is it restricted?
It was not restricted, no.
Okay, so it was just, okay. I didn't know if Levy gave
No.
us that parcel, right? Or no?
Yeah, there were restrictions on it, but it only spoke to what we could not put there.
Okay.
We could not put a DPW there. Forget the other language. Lisa might know. She has a pretty good handle on that consent agreement. But that was why we had that parcel, was with the idea of putting a cemetery up there.
I think I remember Trish Pilchowski mentioning something about the cemetery at one
Yeah,
time.
I remember the cemetery. I didn't know if it was restricted or not. That was.
Oh, no, it's not.
Tammy,
Not to my.
you want to sell any more lots up there? Tammy?
What's that?
I said, are you interested in more cemetery lots or?
You know, we don't sell very many cemetery lots. Maybe a couple in a course of a year. Most people are doing cremations now, and you know, you can put 4 cremations in a plot, and you know, maybe someday. I wouldn't say never, never, but it's going to be a while before we need it.
Okay, well, I'm going to say,
Rick, can I add something?
yes.
That parcel's also burdened by ambiguous easement for a future road entrance into the subdivision. And if you do sell it, they're going to be obligated to negotiate a proper entrance with Levy in the future, or whoever develops the subdivision. There's language in there that's a little wobbly, like here's an easement across it now, but agreed to re-examine in the future.
Yeah, the thing is,
And
like,
it also was restricted just on things that the use list of things they didn't want to see were things that would be incompatible with a residential subdivision. So like Mary said, the DPW might have been cell towers or, you know, things like that.
okay, well, let's just toss out some opinions. I say I don't have a problem keeping it, and
I agree.
making the consideration as
Yeah.
a cemetery. So
Yeah, I think we keep that one. We keep the 15 acres and maybe do something with the Wardlow property.
okay, now
The Wardlow property, if we do put that on the market, will that be for bids? We'll get, you know, an evaluation of what it's worth, and then it goes out for bids.
I think we should do it that way.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was going to be the procedure on that.
Well, what that does,
So
it allows
the
the
whole-
2 parcels, the 2 adjoining properties to bid on it.
Or whoever else.
Yep, Gary?
At once.
I'll let
Right.
Gary speak to it.
Okay.
So actually, for each property, I think you take it up individually. The standard in terms of whether you get rid of it is it needed for a public purpose? Sounds like there may be a consensus that the 15 acres, you're not ready to say it's not needed for a public purpose.
Right.
So you would make a motion to not proceed with a sale of that property at this time. As far as the means of sale, if we turn our attention to the 3.5 acres, I outlined in a a memo or an email to Tammy a month or so ago, 3 ways. One was to just list with a realtor. The second was an auction. The one I liked was just request bids, but it's a public bid. It's not just limited to the 2 folks that have expressed an interest.
Right.
And you don't disclose what you think it's worth. And you do it in a manner that you reserve the right to reject any and all bids, and you see what you get in. I put together a package of papers for Waterford several years ago that it was basically, if you want to buy this property from us, here's the legal documents that you're going to do it under. And they tried it and they didn't get any bid. But here you've got 2 folks that are interested. Seems like you'd get a bid from one of them, and it would take you out of the uncomfortable position of having to pick and choose. Put in the paper, website, a few other places if you have any, and in a reasonable amount of time. Who knows if it's a good time to sell property or not, but.
Yeah.
So you don't have to state a minimum?
No, you wouldn't have to, but you could reserve the right to reject. There's, whether you put a minimum in there or not, and cut different ways. I mean, you put a minimum in there, you're basically saying that if somebody gives you a bid for that amount, you'll probably take it. And if you reserve the right to reject bids, you're not tipping your hand at all. You create all the paperwork, so it's simply they turn it in, fill in a blank for a price. I'm assuming you're going to want to sell it for cash. Certainly can't sell on a land contract. I wouldn't think you'd want to get into selling on a mortgage.
No.
Taking land, right?
All right. So, Brian?
I think on both pieces of property, including the one up by Levy, for future, maybe we're going to have a cemetery or something. If we're not going to use it, I think we should, since we have people that are interested in that property, I think we should be looking at getting rid of it. That's my opinion. I mean, obviously the one in Hickory Ridge is a little bit different, but if we're 100% sure we're going to do something with it, that's fine. But if we're kind of not sure. I don't know why. I just don't think we should be sitting on it. I think we should be, if we have somebody that's interested in the property and get the right price for it, we should probably be looking to move that property on. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I think.
Well, we have one party interested in the 15 acres and 2 parties in the smaller acreage. And I think that when you get 2 parties interested, that's a play. When
Sure.
That one party, that's just somebody trying to see what they can get.
Fair enough, but I just think we got to decide too if we're gonna, if somebody really think we're gonna do, but just to hold on to something, let's get it off the roll and let's get it out there, and let's, less responsibility we have for stuff like that.
Well, when the other way to look at that 15 acres is on a long-term basis, that when Levy does build out, that property will get more valuable.
That's true. Okay.
That
All right.
may be a case for play there. I mean, we can see how it works, because 15 acres, you could get a few houses on that, with a little bit of work. So.
All right.
Right. So I guess I'll make, Gary, I'll do this, see if I can do this. I'll make the motion that the 15-acre parcel on Clyde Road be held for future potential use by the township. And at this time, we're not going to make a decision as to disposition of it.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Salvia? I couldn't hear that.
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so the next parcel, I'll make the motion that we consider the sale of the parcel located at the southeast corner of Middle Wardlow Road and Hickory Ridge Road.
Oh, okay.
Let's see what that one's called there. That is identified as, wow, it goes by, it's, the identification number is 11-20-100-019. And it's 3.42 acres. And that we offer that for sale through a bid process.
And at the start of your motion, determine that that property is not needed for a public purpose.
And we'll add that to the start of the motion.
And we have the right to reject all bids.
Yes, I'll add that in there too.
So you said it's going to be a sealed bid process and to be open at the board table, or do we need to specify that?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I'm in agreement with that.
We can either jump up and down or go, huh.
I'll provide you with the documents that I think you'll find are suitable.
All right, that'll be good. All right, so that was a motion. And Judy, did you say?
I supported, yeah.
Okay.
And I supported the changes.
All right, so vote please.
I vote yes. Mr. Savia?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you guys on that one. Okay, this next item, I sent this off to Gary. We got a, there's been a couple of things going on with these cell towers. Lisa and I had a conversation earlier today about another cell tower where they want us to, the guy wants us to, he wants to buy our lease out. And you can't really get good, we haven't gotten good solid numbers out of these guys before. This particular case, they came forward with an offer that's actually an increase and extends the lease down the road to 2057. So the question is, do we want to extend the lease on a cell tower, or do we want to just finish up with the lease that we've got? And I'll throw some points out there. They're willing to raise the lease by $728.15 per month. So that's about $8,700 and some change per year. Over a 36-year period, that's $314,560 that we would take in off of that tower. And the interesting part about these towers is that, you know, they may or may not be continued to be used for cell purposes. But the irony is that there's a lot of creative people out there. And I think that when you've got a tower like that, somebody's going to come up with some type of a program or a process that keeps those towers alive. If not, then I think might be something in the contracts on these that require them to be torn down. But so the question here is, should we accept this offer? And so what it boils down to is they're going to give us a one-time signing bonus of $14,500. They're going to start the term in 2021. Right now, there's 7 years left on the current lease, so they're going to up the rent starting next year. And that'll put us, you know, into a higher earning rate there. So I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
So
what is the current use or purpose that they generate money from the tower?
They lease the tower out. Gary, you had a question?
Just a couple quick ones here. So the idea is you've got a concept before you, and I've seen these kinds of letters before. And then when it gets down to looking at the legal documentation, the company wants to change the underlying lease in some significant ways. I'm not saying that this company would be proposing to do that, but I think this one's worth doing the work on, and would suggest that if the board's so inclined, that you make a motion to tentatively approve the proposal presented by SBA, subject to township attorney approval of necessary legal documents and final approval by the board when those documents are ready.
Yeah, when I go back to my discussion point,
Yeah.
you know, they could be generating lots of revenue and they hold us to the fire for that many years for a small amount of money. Should we be thinking about a shorter term lease with a renegotiation of a new rate in maybe 5 years instead of getting stuck for $700 for a long term period of time? They may be making lots of money on the tower.
Actually, we've made lots of money on that tower.
You do? Well, I don't know what $700 is. I mean, you know, if they make 1,000, then we're making what? If they make 100,000, you know,
Lisa might have an answer. You have to unmute yourself there, Lisa. Okay.
So on the current cell tower lease, not only do we get a lease payment from SBA, but we get it from all the carriers except Clemens. And so their rents escalate every year based on either capital gain, not capital gains, CPI, or 4%, whatever's more. The more modern leases I've seen don't have that high of an escalation. And some of them are not yearly, they're 5 years. So I think the exact terms of the agreement should really be looked at. I think it's probably to our advantage to extend it out. I mean, that's just my opinion based on things I've read. I'm not a Gary Dovry.
You're lucky. So,
who is Gary Dovray?
So for instance, if this fella's, well, I don't know Klerna, if that's a man or a woman, but if that letter is accurate as to the current monthly rent, that works out to like almost $34,000 a year. If you take what they're saying, the new number would be, that would be like $42,650 a year to start with.
Yeah, I goofed on that. That's per month. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a monthly number. So I mean, the number you're at right now is high from what I've seen on cell tower leases. I have not seen numbers this high except down in the southeast end of the county, the Farmington Hills, Novi area. I think that's because this site's on Highland Road. We have another lease in the township that's not on Highland Road, and it's not paying anywhere near this amount of money. At least is correct. This has got the 4% or CPI. My guess is CPI is usually what the escalator is, but over that length of time, that's not a bad increase. And
right.
Like she said, it was also getting, apparently we're getting a piece of the co-locator revenue. I haven't waded into it to any extent and didn't want to until we wanted to make sure that what you folks wanted to do, we thought it was worth extending.
The number that I gave you, where I got the math that I had is there's the difference between the old and the new lease is $728 a month. So that's an increase of $87.37 a year over what we're already collecting.
That's a number I didn't hear.
Yeah, and then so over 36 years, we're going to earn an additional $314,000 above what we're getting now.
But is there an escalator in the monthly rent, or is it at $35.54.18 until the end of the lease?
Until it looks like until the end of the lease, beginning the 10th of or October 26, 2021.
Because that part concerns me.
And that's where you get into what they turn in as their proposed legal documents. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes I see these companies, they want to rewrite the rules.
Right.
And
well, then shouldn't we ask for a copy of the agreement before we agree to it? I mean, you have the number, but what else is changing? And 30
Well, that-
years, long way out.
Well, here's the way that, you know, the conversation with these people, what we can do is, I'm just asking if you think it's a good idea, then let's talk to them some more and find out what the details are. We don't have to agree to, that we are going to do exactly this. Then we can have Gary take care of it. Yes, Gary.
It's very simple. I mean, postpone action on it and ask them to present their proposed legal lease amendment. Simple
Well,
as that.
support that thought process.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, in 2008, Tower was paying $1835.74 a month. It looks like SBA bought it in 2012, and at that point it was $2,080.95 a month, and now it's at $28.26. So it's I'd want to do the numbers.
We need to see what the long range impact is. Yes, I agree. So I would propose we wait on the decision and see some type of presentation.
Yep, agreed.
I don't know you're going to get a presentation, but we can have the attorney look at the the agreement. So
Counselor can look at the agreement and the presentation.
Well, somebody can do the projections on the revenue stream.
I can do that.
That wouldn't be me, but somebody could assume, make some assumptions on CPI. It's been running around 2 to 3%, I think.
Well, Lisa said CPI or 4%, whichever is greater, right? Isn't that what you said, Lisa?
Right. But I don't think
Lisa's
CPI.
still muted.
I don't think CPI has been at 4% in a long time.
Well, no, it has not.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was greater or less. It's just one or the other. And I do believe one of the carriers is behind and they're not calculating their rent correctly.
an addendum to the meeting that we just finished. If you noticed, the video cut off. The battery on my computer, and I'm the host, died inappropriately. So the only thing that we had to finish was the topic about the cell tower conversation, and we made a motion to postpone any action on the cell tower lease or signing any documents until we got some more information back from the company to make an offer and have our attorney look at any lease language involved in that. So that was the end of the video. Unfortunately, with the computer dying, it didn't pick it up. So the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.